Kev, we were watching this game as it was pretty much wrapping up in the fourth quarter, and it was pretty apparent to me that there was zero defense being played by either team, and a lot of the shots were just being jacked up for the hell of it. And you know, this is not the first time that Kevin and I have talked about the All Star game in the NBA in this manner. We have talked about this a couple of times in the past. I think the only time where we may have not talked about it in such a pessimistic light was, I think, the All Star game after Kobe had passed away, where you could tell that the competitive level of that game was definitely higher than in years past, and was most certainly higher than what it is now. It seems to have regressed to the point where it was pre Kobe passing away. But with the score being 184 to 175, kind of indicates there was no defense being played whatsoever. So, Kev, honestly, I only have one way to phrase this to you about the All Star game, so I'll just lay it to you like this: do you think that the players of the modern day game are ruining what the NBA All Star game is supposed to be?
I mean, when you think of what an all-star game is, similar to the Pro Bowl, it is the best assimilation of players at that point of the season. Now, I know that the Pro Bowl is at the end of the year, but I mean, with the all-star game taking place three-quarters of the way through, it's basically the best players in the league, right? These are the best players in the world going up against each other, barring any injuries or things like that, choosing not to play because of, limit restrictions or whatever the case may be. But when you have the best players in the world just tossing crap up, it doesn't. I don't know. It's not as appealing as it used to be. Like, we know that in the All Star game, it was always the first three quarters were to mess around, pull up from all over the court, alley oops, crazy things, funny things. You know what I'm saying? Like, not a lot of defense being played. And the fourth quarter, everybody really stepped it up because it was like, I know that nowadays a lot of these teams are playing for charities, and like now it's not East versus West. It's the two leading vote getters who are the captains and all these things, right? But for me, it's like the fact that we left the East and West thing and made it a political, like, I want this person on my team, I want that person on my team. Like, to me, it just became kind of stupid. And it was like, just have the best against the conferences. And the fact that all these proceeds go to charity, it's great, but nobody's playing any defense. It was, I think, the first to go to 182 won the game. And obviously, Giannis goes to 184 because they hit a three with 181. So obviously that's why it went a little over. But I mean, if people are just sitting here throwing up shots, right? Like, Damian Lillard was 8 of 20 from the 3-point line. Like, I understand it's not meaningful basketball, but there's no defense being played here. It's not fun to watch. Like, people are just walking down the lane, throwing a layup up. They're throwing the ball down the court the other side. They're jacking up from half court. They're jacking up from three-quarters court. They're laying the ball up. Nobody's really like getting at it in front of the other people. And again, I know the All-Star game is supposed to be for fun, but when you play against the best talent, you want to see some kind of defense. And that's why I used to love the All-Star game's fourth quarter, because it was just, I'm not going to let you beat me in this quarter. This is where I got to tighten up. And it just, again, since they changed it to like vote getter, like leading vote getters from east to west, I think that the All-Star game finally went downhill. It changing the point system rather than it just being like who has the most points by the end of it being capped off at 184 is, again, another reason why I don't like it. All-Star games just haven't been the same since we were younger. I mean, there's no intensity behind it. There's no what looks to be. There's no competitive edge behind it. It's just lay up, toss the ball, throw something up, hope it goes in. I mean, Jason Tatum scoring 55 in a no defense all-star game isn't necessarily something that's entertaining for me. At least, again, in my personal opinion, it's not something that I would waste time watching. I wouldn't fly out to the location to watch this. We already know the skills challenge and the three-point contest and the dunk contest aren't what they used to be. So it's like every single event that takes place at the All-Star game is pretty crap. And I think that's why everybody's advocating for a King of the Hill kind of tournament, like one-on-ones. Who's the best one-on-one player in the NBA? I think that would do a lot better than some of these other alternative games, and even better than this All-Star game, because again, from what we saw, I cannot express to you is half-ass jogging down the court, an attempt to swipe away at the ball, and then getting ahead to the other side of the court without playing any defense. A bucket goes in, and it's just a Hail Mary toss down the other side, and someone's pulling up from 30 feet, someone's throwing it up in alley oop, someone's throwing up a wide open windmill. It's not fun. It's not entertaining to watch. Like it's genuinely like to me, it's almost like a waste of time. I'm not here to watch people take practice shots. I'm not here to watch people warm up. I'm here to watch the best of the best play against one another. And yes, again, it is for fun. But when you take none of it serious, it's not entertaining for me. And I think that that needs to change.
And Kev, I mean, this is not just exclusive to the NBA. I mean, this is something that
No.
we've seen in the NFL. I mean, when it comes to the Pro Bowl, they don't even have a Pro Bowl anymore. Now it's the Pro Bowl games. And honestly, that's just kind of where I see the NBA eventually going to. Because, the way that I see it is these guys, like you had just outlined, they're just not taking it seriously. Now, I'm not saying that these guys have to go balls to the wall competitive and you have to give it 110% in an all-star game setting.
No.
But I mean, is it like that difficult to go from okay, like 80, like 80% competitive, like make it somewhat interesting? But when guys are jacking up shots with no defense whatsoever from 30 to 40 feet and they're just doing it just to do that, I don't really see the fun in it. And honestly, the amount of people that would spend money to actually go to an all-star game and just watch these guys just jack up shots for what 48 minutes of game time, that's a waste of money as far as I'm concerned. So when it comes to the all-star game, I think eventually what I think is going to happen is more than likely I think players are going to move on from this idea of actually playing a physical game, and they may just make it like an all-star break. You know, the teams that are assembled for the all-star game, they'll just be guys that are just the all-stars from each conference. They may compose them into a team or something like that, but outside of that, maybe they'll just turn it into a vacation type thing where you'll have a technical all-star break, you'll be off for a couple of days, and then you get back to it for the last third of the season. But outside of the dunk contest, I don't really watch anything related to the NBA All-Star weekend. I mean, obviously, I know the NBA spends a bunch of money to host these All-Star games every single year. And I don't know what the ratings are going to be from this All-Star game in particular, but just based off of where the ratings have been going with these types of games over the last couple of years, they have been pretty mediocre. And no wonder if guys are just going to be very nonchalant the entire game and it's just kind of a walk through the park and no one's playing any defense whatsoever and there's no competitiveness that's being displayed on the court, they're not going to be able to hold any viewers to watch that game. And honestly, they don't have any reason to at that point. So I remember All-Star games being at least somewhat competitive in the fourth quarter, like you said, Kev. But that's not the case anymore. Outside of the one All-Star game after Kobe had passed away, it kind of has looked like what we saw on Sunday night. Guys just going through the motions, jacking up shots, and then just pretty much trying to get to the end of the game. That's pretty much it. And there's no really entertainment value in that anymore. And I know it's a very pessimistic view of the All-Star game, but when there's no competitive spirit in the game, it's not really worth it to me. So, I was watching some other things throughout the weekend in regards to the All-Star weekend. I thought the skills competition was kind of weak. The 3-point contest was a little bit fun. The dunk contest was essentially saved by Mac McClung. And the All-Star game was pretty much a waste of time. So, yeah, when it comes to the All-Star game, it was just mediocre. And mediocre may actually be putting it in a positive light. It was just a waste of time as far as I see it. But I think eventually the NBA is going to follow suit with what the NFL did when it comes to the All-Star game. I think they're basically going to do it as like a weekend of games. And when it comes to an actual game, I think that part will be completely removed and they'll do something else. Just because I don't think guys are really into it anymore. And it's unfortunate because when you collect all this talent into one basketball court, from an NBA fan perspective, you want to see the best of the best play somewhat competitively in friendly competition. And the players aren't just going out there and doing that. And it's unfortunate because, these All-Star games can be a lot more fun than what they're actually turning out to be. And I honestly don't see it changing anytime soon. And like I said, I think they'll probably just get rid of the game itself and probably just limit it to the little contests that we see take place on like Friday and Saturday. So honestly, I'll just leave it at that.